I just realized something pretty interesting about the whole situation surrounding Mandalore. For most of the season, we have been told that Mandalore was cursed, radioactive, and completely uninhabitable due to the imperial bombings. However, that has since been disproven and was actually a lie told by the imperials to keep Mandalorians away from their home planet. And while the show has answered that part of the question, the second half of the story has yet to be solved. Specifically, the question surrounding why no communication can come in or out of Mandalore. We were told initially that the magnetic interference was another after effect of the imperial bombings, and the show seems to support this idea with the heavy rain and thunderstorm that we always see when characters move in and out of Mandalore. And so on the surface, it does seem to make a whole lot of sense. But what if this isn't really the case, that much like the supposed inhospitable nature of Mandalore, it really is all just a lie? And if you look at episode 7, there is a ton of evidence that points towards this possibility. Recall that the whole issue with the magnetic interference is that no communication can come in or out of Mandalore. Any scans of the planet done outside the planet would be disrupted by the magnetic interference. And while this is seemingly true, as we do see the consoles of ships flickering every time they enter the atmosphere, it doesn't seem to be the case for Moff Gideon. In fact, he seems more than capable of making calls in and out of Mandalore. In the beginning of episode 7, we see him establish contact with Kane, who is on Coruscant, and later communicate with no disturbance whatsoever with the rest of the Shadow Council. And we know for a fact that the location of these calls do take place on Mandalore, in the Imperial base specifically. Which really begs the question, how is it that Moff Gideon is able to make these calls on Mandalore, but the Mandalorians aren't able to do the same? Well, I think that much like the lie about Mandalore, the so-called magnetic interference isn't actually a real thing. Instead, the Empire might have a device of some sort that allows them to jam all communications coming in or out of the planet. Unless calls are made through particular certified channels, nothing else is getting through. Which is why Moff Gideon is able to make these calls and not the Mandalorians. And if this is indeed true, then it actually has huge implications on what might actually happen in the finale. Because not only does it make it extremely difficult for the Mandalorians to contact and warn the fleet, but anything that occurs on Mandalore isn't going to be heard anywhere else. You can think of Mandalore as essentially the perfect death trap for the Mandalorians, unable to call for help or coordinate with each other to react to the Imperial threat. But besides being the ultimate death trap for the Mandalorians, the Imperial communication jamming system might be a crucial plot point in the Season 3 finale. Given how things were left off in episode 7, it's pretty clear that the Mandalorians are in a tough spot, with the Empire sending out their TIE interceptors and bombers to attack the unsuspecting Mandalorian fleet, and Mando captured by the Imperials. Things aren't looking very bright. And I suspect that Season 3 will probably end on a darker tone, with the Mandalorian fleet either decimated or heavily damaged. But what might actually turn the tide, or at least allow the Mandalorians to salvage the situation, is that if they could somehow bring down the jamming system. But in order for this to happen, the Mandalorians must first need to be aware of its existence, something which they have yet to find out. So how could this happen? Well, if we take into account that Mando has been captured, I actually think that this might be an opportunity for him to do some real damage to the Empire. Given that he would already be inside the base, it would actually be the perfect opportunity and way for him to learn about how the Imperials are actually the ones jamming communications. And there's a few ways this could happen. I for one am actually expecting Grogu to just go ham and break Din out, and I honestly think that this would be the most badass way to do it. Could you imagine an angry Grogu storming through the Imperial base looking for Din? That would be a real spectacle. And regardless of how Din manages to escape, whether it's through Grogu or by himself or someone else, I think that during this escape it would be the perfect time for him to find out about the jammer and probably decide to disable it. And if this indeed does come true, then it would also open up a lot of possibilities for other characters to come through. Once the jammer goes down, the Mandalorians can actually start to coordinate their attacks and, if necessary, call in for support from others such as the New Republic. I could totally see a situation where the Mandalorians are forced to call in support from the New Republic, and reinforcements from a Delphi base are sent in to battle against the Empire. Now, of course, there is a question of whether the New Republic would sanction such an operation, communication, but I think in this case, unlike the case on Navarro, which was against pirates, an alert on Imperial presence would force the New Republic to act. Either that or Carson Teva and Adelphi Base might decide to strike out on their own. Also, keep in mind that the New Republic is somewhat suspicious that the Mandalorians are behind Moff Gideon's escape after discovering Beskar at the scene. So for all you know, the New Republic might already be on the trail of the Mandalorians. I would assume they probably were on Navarro trying to find the Mandalorians only to be told that the Mandalorians have left for Mandalore, so I really wouldn't be surprised if they were already round the corner or nearby. Also, another possibility to consider is that by destroying the jammer, it might actually give the Mandalorians the opportunity to reach out to other surviving Mandalorian factions on the planet. Or an even bigger possibility is for them to send out a distress call to all Mandalorians galaxy-wide, informing all surviving Mandalorian factions that the war to retake Mandalore has just begun. And this is definitely within the realm of possibility, as we do know that the Imperial base does have galaxy-wide communication capabilities, as Moff Gideon does talk to warlords from other sectors of the galaxy. So clearly the communication technology is strong enough to do so, and so perhaps Mando sends out a sort of "you are my only hope" style distress call to anyone who would listen, and this ends up attracting other Mandalorian survivors, turning the tide of the war. I mean, how insane would that be? Could you imagine a coalition of Mandalorian factions and the New Republic fighting alongside against a common enemy? What a sight that would be to behold. Regardless, should the Mandalorians be able to bring down the communications jammer, it actually opens up the finale to a whole host of other characters, possibly even certain members of the Ghost Crew. And with Jon Favreau promising us a satisfying conclusion to Season 3, I cannot wait to see what is in store. Anyways, that's all for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below to let me know what you think. I will see you in the next one. I am the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.